You know, there's such affection for these characters, and it all begins with you guys. And so I want to take a moment to illustrate how special you guys are, and I was hoping you could go back in time. I'm going to start with you, Robert. Look to your left, and I want you to, we're going to go down the row, and I want you to try to recall your first impression of the actors to your left. So you're going to start
First impression.
First impression, if you can recall. Start with that. You get to look at Sarah. You're first.
Sarah.
First impression.
This is the easiest job in the world. I just remember thinking this is one of the greatest actors I've ever worked with, Sarah, and to watch her in these scenes. She has this great ability to not look you in the eye until you really need to be looked in the eye, and then because a lot of TV actors
That's just you, actually.
I'm just like, yeah. And then to realize, like this time around, to realize that I'm going to be acting with her in some really juicy scenes are pretty amazing. Dominic just loved to pick on me at the beginning. I used to come home and I'd be all bruised up, and I'd say, well, that's just par for the course. Teabag got thrown on the hood of a car, and but we got through. And one of my favorite moments with Wentworth was towards the end of it wasn't the first impression, although I have to say, the first impression was he took really good care of me, and he included me in the company, because I wasn't in the pilot, I was in the next episode. And towards the end of the summer in the first season, we were having, back in the days when most of us smoked, we stood against the wall, we were having a cigarette, and I turned to Wentworth and I said, this is pretty good, isn't it? Life is pretty good. It finally got cool at the end of the day when we were leaning up against the wall in the evening. Those are great, great memories that will never go away.
Sarah, you go now.
Impressions of these guys.
First impression.
I don't, it was a long time ago. I mean, we were babies. I remember I came to set to watch them film before I started, and it was Chicago, and it was Joliet. It was snowing like crazy and super cold, and Wentworth and I went for dinner, try and get to know each other a bit, and we were walking back through Joliet, and there was an empty building that had been used as a campaign headquarters, and it was littered with these signs for some candidate named Barack Obama who was running for the Senate in Chicago. We turned to each other and we're like, well, with a name like that guy will never get anywhere. Like, it was just one of those like super idiotic conversations that 4 years later made us both into idiots. I think Dom might have growled at me, but you were really nice later. Like, it was like a first impression, which is like, hey, I'm Sarah. And Robert and I didn't work together in the first season, and so most of my first impressions with you were watching your work as the episodes came out, and I was just floored. I was just floored by what you did. I thought it was really brave.
Dominic, how about you?
First impressions of Rob were unique, really odd. I think he was one of the first actors that I kind of really worked with that was really into the method, you know. I was impressed by his commitment to his craft. Sarah, it was, man, this woman's tough as shit, so.
Is that what you grilled at me?
Yeah. Let you know who's straight. And Wentworth, very private, very, just a gentleman, someone that I had never, I grew up in a very kind of rough area in Australia. My friends were all going, "Law," and he was a guy that was the complete opposite of all of those, and he was just very polite, very gentle, very sincere, and the most beautiful-looking man I'd ever seen in my life.
Right?
And I was like, hang on, I thought I was the stud on this show. That's just not going to happen.
Go Wentworth.
I think my first impression of Robert was one of awe and appreciation. From the very first scene we had together, I was impressed with this man's boldness and his choices. And I thought, this is good news, because a show like Prison Break lives and dies by the quality of its villains. And the man had quality in spades. Sarah, I think our first scene together was probably in the infirmary. I don't really recall. It was a long time ago. But I remember appreciating very much the quality of her work, and also the fact that for a moment I wasn't working with dudes. It's such a testosterone-fueled show, so to have those scenes be what they were, it was a change of pace and a respite and a refuge sometimes. And Dominic I met at, I think it was a chemistry test at Fox, and I thought, well, we both have shaved heads, so we could sell that brother thing. I knew we were in.
What are the plans for your body? Will we see the same tattoos that
Michael has a fresh set of tattoos, and they are central to the plot, but they don't work quite the same way they did the first time around.
My question is, what brought up the revival of Prison Break? The reason I ask is because at the end of the last season, the characters' fates had concluded. You were dead, and
We've all been
Sarah
dead,
had-
sweetheart.
So yeah, what brought you guys together again for such an amazing revival show?
I was working, Wentworth wanted someone to work with him on The Flash, and he basically, he got my job on The Flash. The producers were looking for someone that was a hothead, who was aggressive, who was a unpredictable type, and force of nature, I think they said, right? And Wentworth said, well, there's only one guy for that, and that's Dom. So that's how that happened. And we got on set, and it was just like we hadn't been apart for all these years, and we started talking about Prison Break, and we started, warming to the idea of why don't we just revisit it, maybe. And we went to the producers, I think it was Dawn, and she said yes. And the process is very quick after that. And I will say, if it wasn't, the green light essentially came from Wentworth.
Next question.
Hi, this is for Michael. This is Kate from San Diego. I was hoping to see or to know, how long did it take for them to put all those tattoos on your back?
In the original series. In the original series, I had a full body tattoo, front, back, arms. It took about 2 hours to apply, an hour to take off, but it was only once an episode. This time around, there were fewer tattoos. It only took a half hour, but it was every day.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Jillian, and I'm from Texas. My question is, after working together for so many years, what are the craziest memories you have from being on set? All awesome.
Can I say something?
Can't say that. Can't say that.
Can I answer that in a sort of a roundabout way? One of the coolest things about seeing these guys this time around was I never felt there was a moment of going, hey, how are you? How you been all these years? It wasn't nostalgia. It was a bunch of actors telling a story right now, and how the hell are we going to do it to keep it fresh? And that was so exciting. At the same time, what was also great is any actor you work with in this business that's a star or famous, before Prison Break, I'd go, I don't know how to relate to those people. It's pretty great that they're, known. But this bonded all of us in a similar kind of experience, which was kind of amazing to look at each other and go, is it the same for you, man? Can you go anywhere in the world without knowing who you are? And we'd all say, nope. Everybody knows this. And that's a beautiful little safety net for all of us to go, yeah, I hear you, man. It's the same way. It's a beautiful thing, and it's also a curse because we gave up our anonymity by playing these characters.
So when I remember we had a scene in the infirmary. I know that's going to really narrow it down. You'd been burned, and you were face down, and you were waking up and looking at me. And I remember I had to say, my line was, I had to perform a procedure. To this day, I can't say it without laughing. I don't know why. We'd been in that infirmary for a long time, and there are cameras on my face, and Wentworth's back of his head is to the camera. And he would just kind of go, and open one eye and try and watch me say it. I mean, it was probably 25 takes before I got it right. That was, yeah, I don't, for some reason, that's a moment that sticks with me. Wentworth just watching me try and not make an ass of myself.
Robert's point that he just made, it's a good place to jump off. Can you talk about the delicacy of tackling this? I mean, it is called Prison Break, so you have to obviously incorporate that. But, I mean, at what point does he become rehabilitated? I mean, talk about the challenges of figuring out the next chapter, writing this next chapter.
That was directed to me? Yeah. Okay. I had a great conversation with Paul Shearing in early January, and my knee-jerk reaction to the idea of this coming back, which was, had begun from these two down here, was, please, God, make it different. Please don't just give the audience what we've seen before. And these actors and these characters have changed over 6 years, and I got a promise from all of them that that was indeed going to be the case, that this was going to we were going to give you what you loved and knew from before, but we were going to go in a much deeper place, more mature, more brazen, and simpler, I think. And for Teddy, I think the catharsis and the epiphanies that he's gone through in the last 6 years in prison, that I've gone through in my own personal life, were pretty extraordinary, and to be able to incorporate them was necessary.
Wentworth, when you guys went back to the network, I mean, you knew part of this is that you'd have to figure out a way to get him back in the pokey, right? I mean, that was part of the pitch.
That wasn't my idea, no. I figured that we would have to be true to the show's DNA, but once Paul Shearing signed on to spearhead these 9 episodes, I thought, well, great, because he got the whole thing started, and he has a very contemporary, topical, edgy point of view, and I wanted the show to be both, this is what you've loved all along, but also something radical and different and new, and it is those things.
All right, next question.
Hi there, Justin Morales. My question is for the Schofield brothers. As you guys just mentioned, you guys were on The Flash together. So can we expect any characteristics from Captain Cold and Heatwave on Prison Break?
Maybe a musical. I don't know.
All right, I think we're moving on. Next question.
Hello, my name is Robin. I'm from San Jose, and I loved Prison Break. I still do, but when it was on before. I'm so excited for the new season, and my question is for all the actors. You guys have done a lot of great work since the last iteration of Prison Break, and my question is, how do you think your Prison Break characters would fare on other TV shows you've been on since?
Well, I'm kind of playing one at the moment. Mick Rory is kind of similar to, there are similarities with Mick and Lincoln. I think Mick's just funnier. It'd be interesting to see both of them go head-to-head in a fight. I don't know who would win, but yeah.
Wentworth or Sarah?
No, please.
Oh, sure. I think it would be neat to see Michael Scofield on The Flash or Legends of Tomorrow. He has always had a comic book facet, a superhero facet. He can endure what the next person cannot. I don't think he and Snart would get along necessarily, because Snart doesn't get along. It's an interesting idea.
I feel like Sarah Tancredi in the zombie apocalypse might not last particularly long. I'm not sure. I just don't think that's like really her wheelhouse. I think she'd do pretty well on Colony. I think she'd probably join the resistance, and she and Katie would burn down the block.
I am very happy to report that Teabag will only be on Prison Break and no other show, so I never have to worry.
All right, next question.
This is a question for Wentworth. Do you like acting on The Flash more or the Prison Break more?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Excellent question. I have a lot of love and appreciation for Michael Scofield on Prison Break, but Captain Cold is probably my favorite character to play. He's just a good time. He gets to come in, do his thing, and then scram.
Next question.
My question is for Robert, who plays Teabag. Your character was very complex. You know, he had the good side and the serial killer side. I'm wondering, in the new season, will we see any of that serial killer side?
I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to give it away too much, but I do want to say that you will see some changes in the character, and you're going to see this guy struggling to not be that old guy that he was before. This thing that I did before, you know, you'll see him resisting that a lot.